So with chapter 8 coming up for Arknights, I wanted to summarize the stories from chapter 0 all the way to chapter 7. And I would have liked to do these individually, but I want to do them all together because chapter 8 is actually coming like in 2 days? Probably a day from when this video releases. So yeah, I won't be going into too much detail as I just want to summarize everything, but note spoilers from chapter 0 to chapter 7. Without further ado, let's get into it. So Arknights is set in a world named Terra, pretty much like Earth. The people of this planet rely on a valuable element called Originum. They use it as an energy source, industrial materials for weaponry, and even to use arts, which is their magical power. However, there is a catch to using this element. It's extremely deadly under continuous direct exposure. People start to develop crystallization symptoms, from mild conditions in the bloodstream to their whole body eventually turning into crystal. This is called erypathy. While people with that condition is called the infected, they aren't welcomed by the general populace. Some are even persecuted, imprisoned, and or killed. That is why we have the faction called the Reunion. They serve as the primary antagonist of Arknights. The Reunion is made up of infected members, and they all have different agendas between how they view the world, what they want to do, and what they want to accomplish, but they all band together as the infected. The last thing we need to go over is catastrophes. Catastrophes are like natural disasters, but they're a lot worse and they're kind of irregular. That's why most cities are built as mobile cities, so that if a catastrophe is happening in that area, they can just drive away, you know? So our story begins when we are rescued by Rhodes Island. We are the doctor, we wake up with amnesia, and we can't remember anything related to previous events or characters. But after being rescued from our slumber, we find that the Reunion is attacking the Ursa's troops outside. We try to hide, but Amia stands up to protect some civilians who ultimately end up fearing her because she's infected. From the reports, we know a catastrophe is going to hit in the area in 3 hours, and we are unable to stop the situation due to Reunion's sheer numbers, the catastrophe and everything, so we are just forced to retreat. As we suffer the issues of our communications being cut, we are suddenly attacked by Crownslayer. She is stopped by Mephisto and he surrounds us, claiming that he will let Rhodes Island go if he can keep us, the doctor, because he's just curious about us in many ways. Amia is very much against this, and we fight our way through the escape. Though Mephisto commands his troops perfectly and we are unable to beat him until an opening is created by Null. Once Null and Ace appear, we are able to escape even through Forth's amazing shots. One other interesting thing in this chapter before I get to the end of it is that we come across a place called Azazel. It's an underground medical center for the infected that try to give the infected a normal life. It's here that we learn the concerns about how the infected have to find underground hospitals for a hope to survive as they are shunned in society. And it also raises the question, is Rhodes Island but another Azazel? Unable to escape Chernobog in time, the meteors start to fall from the sky and the catastrophe hits by crushing massive amounts of Reunion members below. Due to Null's amazing defense, we manage to get by unscathed. Even among the chaos, there is no room to breathe as the Reunion attacks continue. Eventually, we are surrounded, outnumbered 10-1 by Reunion forces. Within the rubble of the city, Rhodes Island takes up a defensive position, hoping to find time to strike and break free. Tallulah appears as they make way for her. She approaches alone, and still the entire Rhodes Island is on maximum alert. Null begs Amia to retreat with the doctor and the medics, as Tallulah approaches, melting the ground around her. Tallulah uses her arts, gathering the heat towards her hand and firing at Null, breaking her armor in the process. Ace orders snipers to fire arrows at her, and the sheer projectiles melt as they approach her. Tallulah unleashes her arts, which incinerates everything around her. The allied forces are in shambles, even unable to breathe properly. Tallulah speaks about how Rhodes Island showed promise, but for fighting against the infected, they will die here. As she unleashes her arts one more time, everyone tries their best to think of a way to stop it, and when all hope is gone, Amia stands before everyone, holding back Tallulah's attack. Amia cannot hold things for too long, but gives everyone enough time to get up and face the situation. Though Amia is ultimately knocked down and carried away while Ace takes the front line. Amia prays that she will not lose another person she cares about as she is dragged away against her will. We meet W as we are escaping. She taunts Amia, asking what she has over everyone that they would so willingly give their life for her. A thing to note here is that W shows a heavy interest in the Doctor, and we learn exactly why in Dark Knight's memoir, which is the story of W. So that's a whole other video to cover. In the last scene of chapter 1, we are shown that Ace's men are all dead as he goes to fight Tallulah after losing an arm. Amia feels the grief of her comrades but promises not to cry until the war is over. Everyone continues back home, towards Rhodes Island. But the rest is not long as we head to Lugman for negotiations to work together to stop any reunion uprising planned for Lugman as it was in Chernobog. After Chen escorts us in and Carlson handles negotiations, we start our first task as a trial of sorts. Together with Liscom and Franke, we head out to locate an Ursus girl by the name of Misha. After finding her, she is reluctant to join us, but Amiya uses the anime protagonist's speech to convince her to come with us. You see, Lugman captures and imprisons the infected. Misha and other infected from the slums tend to avoid the higher ups, so once she learns we are taking her to the LGD, she loses trust in Amiya. It's then that we are attacked by Skull Shatterer, who recognizes Misha. After fighting them off, Misha asks why the infected are fighting each other. This is a good question, as both Reunion and Rhodes Island want the infected to be free from the oppression forced upon them. After many troubles along the way, mainly for stage content, we get Misha to the LGD. She is scared, but Amiya ensures her that she is always welcome at Rhodes Island and that Misha should teach her how to make dolls when they next meet. The scene was actually really cute. We get a bit of a scene where they ask Tallulah why she wants to go through all this trouble to take Lugman. She states that she didn't come back just to return what has been taken from the infected, but she will also make him pay. She then says, above all, don't you think that things are getting very interesting? Don't you agree, Tallulah? As to what both of these things mean, I will leave that up to your imagination and maybe up to chapter 8 to answer. I don't know. No spoilers. Lugman gets overwhelmed by the Union members and Rhodes Island tries to fight back but falls into their trap. Meanwhile, Chen explains to Misha that the reason they were after her is because her father was the most famous scientist in Chernobog, and that she cannot be allowed to fall into Reunion hands. Rhodes Island ends up having to fight Skull Shatterer, but then Reunion retreats after W kidnaps Misha. Rhodes Island and Lugman start the operation to retrieve Misha. Meanwhile, Misha speaks with a Reunion member asking why they decided to join the Reunion in the first place. I feel I want to read this out because this kind of shows the basis of a lot of Reunion members. My wife, my child, they were all killed by Chernobogians. Under Ursus, the infected were treated worse than livestock. The destruction of Chernobog? No. That was far too light of a punishment. Do you know how much blood is on their hands? Misha, we've been feared, exploited, humiliated, and persecuted. Just because of the fact that we're infected. Not for any other reason. When Skull Shatterer enters the room, Misha recognizes Skull Shatterer as her brother, and he explains to her that he joined the Reunion to fight for the freedom of the infected, as their own mother was killed in front of him. Skull Shatterer convinces Misha to join him. Texas and Exusia create a distraction to allow Rhodes Island to force Skull Shatterer out. W informs Skull Shatterer that they need to take out the hooded person next to the bunny girl, that's us, if he wants to destroy the brains of the operation. We move forward and fall into their trap to kill us. As Skull Shatterer is about to kill Doctor, Amiya kills Skull Shatterer first to protect us. Amiya explains that she doesn't want to kill others, but she didn't mean to. She was just trying to protect us. W ends up giving Amiya a phone with a direct line to Misha before escaping the fight that's going on. Misha is surrounded by those hurt by Rhodes Island and explains to Amiya that she stands on the side of the infected, and that means being part of the Reunion. Determined to retrieve Misha, Rhodes Island and the rest continue their forward advance on the Reunion only to face the last enemy holding the line, Skull Shatterer. When he died, his comrades mourned his passing, and Misha took up her brother's arms. Now you know that the last Skull Shatterer in chapter 3 is not only a different Skull Shatterer, it is also one of the hardest battles for Amiya. Skull Shatterer is powerful, but when she is defeated, nobody is smiling. Amiya and Chen actually take a moment and have a heart-to-heart, and that concludes chapter 3. To start off chapter 4, Frostleaf, Jessica and Meteorite go to explore Chernobog after the incident in chapter 0 to gather some intel, upon which they encounter Force, Mephisto and the Yeti squad. That mission failed so quickly. They tell Amiya to stay away, but that's like telling a banker not to offer you a ridiculous loan. We find Frostleaf deep in enemy territory, and together we save Meteorite and Jessica. Jessica seems to be scarred by something she saw, and it is in this instance that we watch as Amiya uses her arts on Jessica to understand her emotions and calm her. This is one of Amiya's powers that will come into play later. We encounter Mephisto spouting on about how they reclaim Chernobog as they set ablaze to the place. Amiya decides to face him, and for once the battle actually goes our way. As the final blow is about to strike Mephisto, the entire place freezes in the blink of an eye. Frostnova's ice holds people in place as she approaches with Reunion forces. I love this fight so much, as it would actually be amazing animated, because the entire condition changes from victory to survival in an instant. Frostleaf uses her power to warm up the area around her, giving the team some movement, but they are still forced to hold the line as Amia refuses to leave Frostleaf behind, who cannot move out of place. Frostnova sings and snow starts falling, issuing the beginning of this battle. Managing to survive the fight for a while, Frostnova gathers all the ice surrounding everyone to release it at once. Frostleaf is able to stop Frostnova with her arts, but only for a moment, allowing Amia to find the Originum shard, creating the cold current. When she destroys it, everybody is able to retreat. But this is only the tip of Frostnova's iceberg. With Chen overlooking Lugman, we see that the reunion has taken over part of Lugman, and that concludes chapter 4. But now we get to start chapter 5, aka Chen runs at the reunion really angrily. Chapter 5 is about Chen and the LGD as they recapture their base of operations from reunion. Along the way, Chen and Hoshiguma are injured. Hoshiguma so much more for protecting Chen. From that point onward, Chen basically runs up to the rooftop where Mephisto is waiting, laying waste to all the enemy forces. She appears to corner Mephisto, but he raises the dead reunion soldiers by growing the crystals in their bodies. Now that's some Final Fantasy type shit right there. He also provides them with continuous healing, turning the tides heavily in his favor as he is surrounded by immortal brainless bodyguards. Chen tries to go in for Mephisto, but forced cover fire is enough to hold her off, although props to Chen for blocking forced fire when Null was barely able to stand it. Backed into a corner, Chen is forced to use her dragon slaying sword. This is a second sword she carries on her. Between all the clues given throughout the chapters, until now we can assume that the sword was supposed to be used against Tallulah. The sword didn't want to be unsheathed until now, but unsheathing it, Chen is able to use arts. This is basically like a second skill in game. Chen blocks the sniper shots from all directions but cannot move because of it and cannot deliver the finishing blow. Chen's own arts eventually explode on her, blocking a shot and taking out 3 guards and also basically injuring her and breaking 2 of her ribs. It was an intense explosion. And here I would like to point out that she has been running up this building and fighting everyone on the way here for the entire chapter, carrying all the fights, though now she is broken and at her end, and Mephisto is taunting her, and trust me, you don't want to be on that end of Mephisto's taunts. He's annoying. Mephisto orders the final attack on Chen when Blaze ascends from the sky with an Amia in her arms. With Blaze and Amia's sheer power and the Doctor's tactics, the fight is shifted into Chen's favor. Mephisto freaks out, and one important thing to note here is that as Chen kills some of the reunion members that Mephisto made into his immortal zombies, their last words are, "Thank you." I'm just saying, that's kind of dark. Anyway, throughout all of that, the enemies manage to escape. Rhodes Island works with Lugman to push the Union forces out of Lugman. It is actually in this chapter that we learn about the past of both Mephisto and Faust and Frostnova and the Yetis. We learn that Mephisto, Eno, and Faust, Sasha, grew up together, and that Sasha was always there for Eno, encouraging him not to seek revenge but to do what he wants. Faust questions how Tallulah isn't Tallulah anymore and how she treats people differently, to which she answers, Tallulah is just a name. Tallulah is Tallulah. Meanwhile, in chapter 613, which I heavily suggest you read for yourself, Doctor ends up trapped alone with Frostnova. This is supposed to be a scary situation, but in fact it turns into one of my favorite scenes. During a conflict between the Yetis and Rhodes Island, the Doctor and Frostnova get stuck underground. It's here that the two discuss her past and they have a mutual understanding. They agree to talk while Rhodes Island and the Yetis come together to agree and try to save the 2 people they lost instead of fighting each other. By the way, the Yetis are the coolest character in the story, pun not intended. They are really funny and they are protective of their sister Frostnova, and I love them so much. During their shared time, Frostnova tells us about the story about the Originum mines that people used to work at where she lived. Her parents, her grandparents, and everyone working in the mines were shut down for sport by the Ursus troops. They made them draw straws to decide who they would kill. Once they had killed all the adults, they couldn't let the children work in the mines, so they planned to execute them too. Then, just as Frostnova and the other children were about to be killed, her arts activated, killing the 4 soldiers who were to carry out the execution. It was then that Frostnova was saved by Patriot, or Barukatir. Frostnova says that when she saw the blood of her enemies, she realized that they shared the same blood, and that it was Ursus that turned these people into what they are. Frostnova asks us to take a candy out of her pocket. She asks you to put one in her mouth and that you can have one for yourself. But be careful not to touch her skin, because if you do, it'll freeze your hand. When you eat it, it is very spicy. The rest is quite long, but it's in chapter 6:13 if you want to read it for yourself. Regardless, in chapter 6 there's a lot of things that go on. We spend half the time riding on Blaze's back. Greythroat has a showdown with Force sacrifices himself to save Mephisto. There's a flashback to chapter 4 showing how Blaze helped them escape Frost Nova initially in that chapter. Red beats the crap out of Crown Slayer. The Yeti Squadron sacrificed themselves to allow Frost Nova to retreat as her arts have taken a toll on her body. After Reunion has retreated, the sacrifice of Force, the sacrifice of the Yetis, Frost Nova turns to face Rhodes Island. Frost Nova's neuropathy has progressed to a stage where Erigonum is draining through her skin, combining with the water molecules in the air and forming black crystals that float around her. They warn her that if she keeps using her arts like that, she will die, but she doesn't want to listen to anyone. At this point, it ends up being Blaze, Greythroat, Amiya, and the Doctor, I guess, fighting Frost Nova in the final part of this chapter. Frost Nova fully releases her anger. She's angry at Tallulah, she's angry at Reunion, she's angry at this world that took everything from her. Yet, Frost Nova never hated Tallulah. She only hates this land that was never kind to her. If Rhodes Island can't even defeat her, they will stand no chance against Tallulah. It's at this point, trapped in this place, that we must fight Frost Nova. If we defeat her, she promises to join Rhodes Island. Otherwise, we will die here. It's here after the boss fight that we have one of the hardest stages in the game, assuming you actually followed the story. 6:17 has you watch the fight conclude, and in the end, nobody really wins. Frost Nova dies in your arms, smiling, saying that she will join Rhodes Island. She asks us to save Tallulah, the real Tallulah that she knew from so many years ago. She touches our face, and her fingers are no longer cold. She's happy that before she died, she finally touched someone again. I know everyone requested it, but Frost Nova is actually a part of Rhodes Island. Though, she is dead. There's little time to mourn her death as Chernobog's core is on a collision course with Lugman. Remember how I said that cities are mobile in the beginning? Well, Chernobog is like about to Tokyo drift straight into Lugman. They spend a lot of time talking politics, and let me sum it up for you. Lugman can't attack Chernobog or they will initiate a war with Ursus. Chen knows Tallulah is in Chernobog and understands this, so she quits the LGD and jumps out the window and starts running towards Chernobog. Rhodes Island decides that they will take the fight to Chernobog. Since they aren't a part of Lugman, it won't start a war. Everyone good? Politics done? I don't know why they wasted like 3 fucking chapters explaining that. I explained it in 2 seconds. The end. We return Frost Nova's body to Rhodes Island and meet with Rosmontis. Amazing and fun character, by the way, who together with Kalson and Amiya will be our team for this chapter. Hoshiguma tries to stop Chen, but she cuts through Hoshiguma's shield and just carries on walking. From here, another good chapter to read for yourself is 7-4. Amiya gives an amazing speech and seems to have gained a good head on her shoulders. Also, Amiya says, Rhodes Island has no reliable treatment to restore the Doctor's memory in just 2 short weeks, as she tries to get the Doctor and Kalsa to work together for once. This tells us that all of this only happened in 2 weeks. Damn. After completing an intelligence summary with Kalsit, the Doctor joins Rosmontis' team and witnesses her fighting style for the first time. Rosmontis' fighting style is bloody and cruel. Literally, Rosmontis has these like big doors and she destroys people with them lore-wise. Although, interestingly enough, she left a lot of them alive. She tries not to kill them. Though, if you would like to know about Rosmontis, chapter 7:13, you can read that through for all the details on her. Basically, as we are infiltrating throughout this chapter, we learn about our opponent, Frost Nova's father, Patriot. Our team actually does really well in this infiltration until we reach Patriot. Patriot stands like a mountain before Rhodes Island. The only way to cross is to overcome him. Though everyone tries their best to convince him otherwise, the battle against Patriot is a hard one. He is just as tanky in the lore as he is in game. He talks about how Reunion used to be like Rhodes Island and that Rhodes Island could end up becoming Reunion in the end when they realize that their struggles change nothing. In the last moments of the fight, Amiya still begs him to stop, but he fights on as a warrior who has everything taken away from him. I truly regret. My son, father killed you. Father let you die for nothing. Father doesn't deserve to be your father. He thinks back to his daughter Yelena, or Frost Nova, He approaches Amiya, hit by all of Rasmontis' attacks as he moves forward regardless. His armor breaks, his weapon destroyed. Amiya uses her arts to stop Patriot and defeat him. Upon his defeat, he gives Amiya the key to stop Chernobog, saying we earned the right to kill Tallulah. Slowly falling to his death, he rages as he sees hallucinations of his family caused by Amiya's arts. Remember when I said Amiya can see into people? This is an extension of that power. Now I see. You are her successor. Theresis lied. The king had a successor. You are the Lord of Fiends. This is something he says to Amiya once he sees these visions. I heard in the past, Lord of Sarkaz gave visions of comfort as favors. Their champions would see great walls or loved ones long past. Countless soldiers for these visions fought ceaselessly. This goes to show us that there is always this mystery behind Amiya, and this kind of leads into that. But at the same time, Khalsid does play it off as this being his own delusions. But then again, I still don't trust Khalsid. I never trusted her. Everything that woman says is a lie. Amiya explains that she didn't want him to have a tragic end, but he argues saying that his end is not someone else's to give. Now in this scene there's a lot happening and I'm skipping over it, but basically a lot of things are coming together to prove the prophecy of the Lord of Fiends, who they are suggesting is Amiya. He refuses to die to this Lord of Fiends and approaches Amiya, but she doesn't move and faces him, and he dies in the moment before crushing her skull. For a minute, there's nothing but silence, and Patriot is dead. From here we get a bunch of setup for future chapters. Amiya and Rasmontis head their own way, Doctor and Khalsid go together, they encounter W, who gets tossed aside by Khalsid like nothing. We get a look into the day Tallulah was taken away from Chen. Mephisto investigates the sarcophagus we woke from in the start of the story, and we get a shot of what looks like to be a preserved Theresa, who is someone from W's story. Now I just want to say again that this is a summary and I skipped on a lot of details, but hopefully I gave you enough information to either be interested in the story enough to go read it for yourself, or that you understand enough about what the hell is going on. But anyway, I will try and do a Q&A stream about the story when I can so that we can discuss. I will see you all in the next one. I actually really enjoyed this. I hope you did too. Goodbye and good night.